Hey, welcome back to JS Interview. So, what's an arrow function? In this video, we'll be exploring the differences between arrow function and regular function, and how to use an arrow function, and when you should use it, and what are the benefits. So, let me quickly show you guys how it looks like. So, right now I'm selecting a regular function, and underneath I have arrow function. So, the main difference between arrow function and the regular function declaration is that in regular function declaration, you have a function keyword. You may or may not type the name of the function, and you have curly brackets. Whereas in an arrow function, you don't have a function name, and curly brackets are optional. So functionally, these two lines are the same, and so the property of arrow function is that the last statement gets returned automatically. However, if you put curly brackets, then you have to manually return it like we are doing up here. So what are some benefits of arrow function? Well, it's less typing for one. It looks much cleaner and it's easier to read. Coding is just as much as reading as typing. We have to read a lot of code, and anything that makes reading code easier, more intuitive, is always A plus. And now let's talk about differences. Arrow function cannot be used as a constructor, so you cannot use arrow function and assign it to a variable and use new with it. So you cannot create more objects using arrow function. That's first difference. Second difference is that you cannot use arguments object. You may not know this, or you may know, but if you don't know, all the functions have arguments variable keyword available to them in regular functions, and arguments is basically like an array that has list of all the variables that have been passed to the function. So in regular function, you can use the argument array, which is not really an array, but it acts like one. You can treat it like one. You have access to that, but in arrow function, you don't. Third difference is that you don't have to use curly brackets when declaring arrow functions, and it automatically returns the value, whereas in traditional functions, you have to return the value if you want to return the value. But if you do use curly brackets, then it acts like traditional function, so you have to return the value too. And one last and the really important difference between arrow function and regular function is that this keyword in arrow function does not depend on how it was called. As I talked in my previous video where I talk about how this works in JavaScript, this in regular function depends on how it was called. So any object that's on the left side of the dot notation, this gets assigned as that object. However, in arrow function, this is simply inherited from the scope it was declared in. What that means is wherever you type the arrow function, whatever the value of this would be in that situation, that would be the value of this inside the arrow function. Doesn't matter where it gets called. So let me demonstrate that. So here I have an object with two functions. Both functions return another function. In the top one, which is called regular, I return a normal function. And in the bottom one, which is called arrow, I return an arrow function. In both cases, I'm console logging this value of this. I call this function, and I got the function I declared here. Now, if I call f1, this should be global. Yes, it's a window object. Because since it's a regular function that I got when I call object or regular functions, this value depends on the context it's called in. Here I called it without any dot notation, so it was global. However, if I do the same thing with arrow function, again, I got the function Now I'm going to call it. This actually returned me the object itself. Now take a look. This value in arrow function came from in the context it was declared in, not in the context it was called. I call it just like I called the F1. I call F2 same way. There was no dot notation involved. But again, as we said, this value gets assigned is actually inherited from the time it was where it was declared in. Here it was declared in this function arrow, which was called like this with this dot notation. So this value inside the arrow was object. Since this value was object, arrow function also inherited the value this as an object. That's all, and if you have any questions or comments, let me know. Leave them in under the video, and don't forget to like and subscribe. I'll be posting a video almost every day, so stay in touch.